So did the miners typically work on the major holidays?
Yes, except for Christmas. The reason the explosion happened on Christmas Eve, that was their last day of working day before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually they didn't work on any holidays themselves.
Okay.
And it was optional if they wanted to work Christmas Eve or not.
Okay. Would that many of miners have normally gone down on it Christmas Eve?
I know there have been over 100 men. It was optional if they wanted to work Christmas Eve, so it would have been.
Past Christmas Eves, would that many have gone down? 54?
Usually it was about half the crew. It wasn't the whole crew.
Mm-hmm. Did the families still have Christmas after the disaster happened?
Well, most of them did have, some of them did have gifts bought, and they would have Christmas, but it wasn't the same.
As it is now?
Yeah.
Okay. How long would it have taken news of the disaster to reach Decatur and the surrounding towns?
Well, they got on the AP wire, so it was just a matter of minutes.
What is the AP wire?
Well, it was like AP wire, like you had an AP wire signal system that would get on the AP wire, and then that would tell, like a phone system, like, that's what we call today.
Did the other newspapers send reporters?
Yes.
Were a lot of the people who went to the funerals from outside Moweaqua, or is it mainly the families?
Mainly the families, but of course those families had families in other towns too, close towns.
Did children still go to school, or did they have to leave and start working and stuff?
Some of them still remained here in Moweaqua. Others needed money, and that was during the Depression time, so a lot of them had family in the Chicago area, and so they went to live with them to make money to send back home to the people who, their brothers and sisters who were still at home.
Great. What about the mothers? Did they have to quit what they were doing and go to work?
Most of them did have to do laundry, take in work if they still had young children at home that they couldn't go out to work.
Okay. Did the state help out any of the families?
They did get a settlement depending on how many years their husbands had belonged to the union, and so it was based on what their payment and then the dependents that was left at home.
Okay. Did like the amount of children affect that?
Yes, it did.
Did the families move away as soon as the disaster happened, or did they try and stick around?
Most of them tried to stick around, but there was a few that left within the next 6 months or so.
Yeah. Did the population of Moweaqua drastically decrease?
No, it's about the same as it is today.
Were all the businesses open while the miners were getting rescued, or did they shut down and help?
Some of them sent some of their staff to help, but most of the businesses stayed open because there was so many people in town that, like the cafes and stuff, and the hotel had to be open so that they could manage the extra people that had come to town.
Did the hotel give out free rooms, or did they?
Now that I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. What did people from the other towns, like, where did they stay other than the hotels? Like, what the miners?
Well, some people would let them stay in their homes, like rent out rooms to people that were staying, like reporters and things like that were staying in town. That, you know.
How did it affect the businesses? Like, was it major?
Yes, probably not immediately, but then in the long run, because they didn't have that, some of those families didn't have that income coming in, so there wasn't so much extra money to be spent locally, and so some of those dwindled in what they were bringing in revenue-wise.
Okay. Did any of the businesses help out families that had lost miners in the accident?
Yeah, some of the businesses where they, you know, like you'd have an account, like you'd been buying something. Some businesses wiped the slate clean if you still had a bill there, just to help out the families.
Were there insurance that covered all the expenses of any of the families, or was that all state and?
Between the miners union and some state support, that I pretty much covered the burial expense.
Did like the miners union try to reopen the mine as soon as after it had collapsed, or did they wait a while?
Well, it took rest of that. See, that happened in December, and it took rest of that mining season to clean up the debris, and then they mined one more mining year. And by that time, they were mining so far from the shaft where the shaft was that it was taking too long to get the carts out there to mine and to get it back in, so there wasn't means to sink another shaft. If there would have been means to sink another shaft, I'm sure that they would have kept on mining.
Is there still coal, a lot of coal beneath Moweaqua now?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
So would it be profitable now to reopen a mine?
Oh, there is good, it's called Erie sootless coal, and so it doesn't leave any soot in your pipes. I don't know how high in sulfur it is, the sulfur content, but there's plenty of coal underneath Moweaqua.
What was I gonna say? How long do they mine throughout the year, or?
They usually started in September, October through March or April. They didn't mine during the summer months. It was just called a seasonable mine because of that. The fact of the barometric pressure and the hotter it is above ground, the barometric pressure drops and methane gas comes out more easily. So that's why they didn't mine during the summer months.
I mean, would it be hot in the shaft also, or would it stay
No,
relatively
it would
cool?
stay pretty cool.
Okay, since it was
Because you're 625 feet down the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Did has the technology evolved now that if the same kind of cave-in would have happened, that they would get them out a lot quicker?
Well, with technology now, there would have the air shafts now in mines have to be big enough that you possibly could escape out of, and at that time they weren't. The air shafts that tube down into to where they were mining were only pipes that were about 6 inches in diameter, where they couldn't escape out of that.
Was safety one of the main things that they worried about, or was it all revenue?
Well, the miners always worried about safety, but with the open carbide lamp, with your open flame, you never know whenever you're going to get in an area that has a gas and cause an explosion.
How many how many accidents had there been before this?
I think there was only 2 or 3 before that, but nothing major.
Had anybody died or?
I think there was a miner or two that where they were undercutting the coal. Some coal had shifted and trapped them, but nothing like an explosion ever before.
Okay. Did the stuff they wear help protect them in the mine, or was it just like for lighting?
No, because the type of hat they wore with their carbide lights was just a canvas. It was just canvas. It wasn't like a hard hat today.
Oh, did they just not have that back then, or did they just not worry about it?
They just didn't have that back then.
Like all the plastics?
The plastic type of helmet didn't come out until the late 30s, early 40s.
Did after the coal mine collapsed, did a lot of business, the business that wanted to come to Moweaqua, shy away and start going to Decatur and Taylorville?
Well, I imagine they looked twice because of that industry had left, and it wasn't as booming as much.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if the coal mine had stayed here, there might have been some more businesses at that time lured to Moweaqua.
Did after the coal mine collapsed, did they have to find other means of revenue? So did that help boost all the farming that is around here now?
Well, they were farming back then too. Well, see, the miners themselves during the summer months would work for farmers. They would work as carpenters and stuff like that. So a lot of those men that did not work that day, that were still stayed in Moweaqua, they went into farming, they went into carpentry and stuff like that.
Oh, so is that why the population didn't take a huge dive?
Right.
Because there were still so many.
Mm-hmm.
How many miners worked at the peak?
At the peak was about between 125 and 130 miners.
Was that a lot compared to other mines, or?
Oh, I don't know. For this size of mine, that was quite large, a number of employees.
Were they bringing out relative to the size of the mine? Were they bringing out a lot of coal compared
Yes.
to? So it was a high producing mine.
Right, very high producing mine.
What did that impact the coal industry around in Illinois after that power mine closed?
Well, I would imagine so, because like I said, there was a demand for the type of coal we had because it didn't leave soot in your pipes. And not all the coal around Illinois will do that. And so the demands, since ours closed, more demands on Payne's coal mine, more demands on Stoington's coal mine in the Taylorville area, you know, that their business picked up quite a bit because there wasn't this mine here.
Did other miners that had mined like move to the other mines? So that
Yeah, some of them went over to Stoington, some of them went to Payne, but some of them stayed here locally and went there to work and just, you know, kept their home here.
If mine hadn't collapsed, would there still be other mines probably running around here since they didn't get the coal out as quickly?
It's hard to say, because at the time of the disaster, they were clear out to the golf course. You know where the golf course is from town, so that's how far out they were. They had mined all the original town here, and had stopped mining underneath the roads here in Moweaqua, and that's how far they were out. And because the vein of coal was much thicker out there.
Okay. So is there still tunnels underneath here, or did they try and collapse them all?
Well, you would backfill. You would have a tunnel, then you would, because where you're mining, that whole thing's not all good coal, you know what I mean? So as you pick it out, you would backfill where you honeycomb, you roomed mine.
Oh, okay. So as they...
So you would do mine an area, leave an area, mine an area, but then you would backfill.
Oh, okay.
So there is, you know, there might be a hole there, but then there's this part here, there's still earth.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to explain, talk about?
I don't know what else you've talked to everybody else about.
Yeah, that's all I have. Do you mind if I take a look around here after we...
If I can get this carbide lamp to work, I'd like you to videotape that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Let me try to get that to work, okay? We don't light it often because we've kind of had some trouble with it, but if I can get it work for you, I'd like you to get that on tape, okay?
Yeah.
But it's gonna take me just a few minutes here.
We have a couple of those at my house. I highly doubt they work though.
This one has, we used to light all the time, and then we started having a little bit of trouble with it. So if I can get, I'm gonna try lighting this outside first, okay?
Yeah.
But you can get see the kind of get the flame there.
Mm-hmm.
The gasket's not getting down tight, and so that's what you're.
I see. So this is what they would use down.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have the flame there.
Yeah. How long would this last?
The bottom part, if you had it filled, can I blow it out now?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If the bottom of this fill was filled with your carbide, it would, and if you kept your flame about this distance here, it would last about 2 hours. So that's why you would have extra flask, and I'll show you what a flask looks like in there, that you'd have extra carbide, and there's always water down the mine, and that's what you'd have more fuel for your lamp.
Okay. Okay.
And there's just a metal piece here. This hooks on your, then this is just a canvas hat. This hooks on there. So you would light your light, hook this on here, and then put it on your head, like that, and
Okay.
tighten it up.
I see.
Right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very thin quality plastic. So really, this is not going to protect your head very much. But it'll protect your head more than the canvas hat would.
Yeah.
But and it just works the same way where your carbide lamp would hook on right onto there.
Okay.
They would blast it, had something place to go.
Okay.
And so after they undercut it, they would use this drilling machine, and this would be secured to the ceiling where they were working,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be to the ground. But it would have the same thing at the ground, not this foot like we have on here. And they would start out with a starter bit, which is like a regular drill bit, and they would put on there and pin it on and drill in that far, and then they would reset their drill, get a nut, and that would be in there. So they reset it and put a longer one in there until they had a hole drilled in there about 6 feet, and then they would reverse that all by hand get that out of the way. And then in earlier days, what they did was they used cylinders of paper like this. So we did roll cylinders of paper like this. And their black powder was in containers like this right here. And they would put a cap full inside there, a black powder. And then they would use a tamping rod, which is like this big rod up here. And if you can see the end of that, that's got a copper end on it. And so this would be tapped into with a fuse. They would secure a fuse in here. And it would have a blasting cap on it. It would give a little charge after it got in there. So this would be in there too. And they would tamp this into the hole and run this fuse out. And then at the end of the shift, whenever all the miners for the day was out, then there was a crew of about 2 to 3 men that would go around and set up all these blasts, so the coal would be down for the next day.
Okay.
But then in later years, they used dynamite sticks.
Did they always hand crank all the holes?
Yes.
Okay.
For blasting, yes.
When did they start using like electric drills and powered drills?
Oh, that would be in like late 40s, early 50s.
Okay.
After our mine was.
Yeah.
And to hold up where they were working, you can see that they didn't even take the barks off the trees. We had people that would sell timbers to the mine, and they'd take it down and to prop up the ceilings. And they're actually, you can see how bright the carbide lamp is there in complete blackness. And this is the size of the car of coal that they're loading up.
Huh. Did they ever like have to hand